If you're a beginner to intermediate player who is struggling with bar chords, you're going to want to watch this video. In 1 minute or less, I am quite certain that I'm going to be able to show you how to fix that problem forever. Let's check it out. In this video, we're going to take a look at two of the major shapes that cause the most issues. We're going to take a look at a 6-string major chord shape, in this case A major, I'm at the 5th fret here, and a 5-string D major shape. 5-string meaning the 5th string contains the lowest note. It's actually only a 4-string chord. Now both of these contain extensive barring. The A shape contains a 1st finger bar across all 6 strings, and the D shape has 3 strings here at the 7th fret. So here's how this went with me. When I was told about bar chords, I was asked to flatten my index finger across all 6 strings. Now, I take things literally. Flatten this part of your finger flat against the strings. Okay, no problem. But then when I proceeded to add the other fingers in place, I got this. And this is probably what you're experiencing. Several strings, several notes not coming out clearly. No matter how hard I tried to press, no matter how much I tried to practice it, nothing ever worked. Well, I hate to tell you this, but the secret had nothing to do with your fingers at all. What changed was my elbow, the position of my elbow. Check this out. If you were to flatten your finger across, hold your chord, if your elbow is outward, look at what happens to my fingers. Never mind the first finger. Look what happens to these 3. When my elbow is tilted upward, there's no way that I can keep my other fingers from flattening out. Once my elbow comes in towards the guitar, it makes all the difference. My fingers, without even trying, without me trying to manipulate them at all, they instantly stand up better and they get out of the way of the other strings. Elbow outward like a chicken wing, I got trouble. Inward, success. That was it. It was my elbow. I'm sitting there wondering about, is something wrong with my fingers? And no matter how much I tried to arch my other fingers, which by the way is another thing I see a lot of students doing, is they'll flatten, they'll collapse these fingers. I don't think they mean to, but they're just not aware that their fingers are not as arched as they should be. So that is an important factor. If you're not arching your fingers properly, it won't matter how correctly you're issuing your first finger on that chord. It's going to be a mess. So if you're following proper technique and you're having your fingers arched properly, then it all comes down to your elbow. Now, here's the other thing. When your elbow is pulled in towards the guitar, that actually puts the pressure on your finger's top side here. It actually isn't the flat part. So when people say to flatten your finger across, it's actually not meant to be literally the flat part of your finger like you think it would be. It's actually going to be more on the top part. Now, if you want to, you can just aim to hold that part of your finger down on the strings, but the way I look at it is that is the result of your elbow. You can't fret with this part if your elbow is not doing the correct thing. So I say go to the source. Think about your elbow being in the right spot, and then your first finger will automatically conform to doing the right thing. These fingers being arched still, and you have success. Even if it's at the A minor shape where the middle finger is out and you're actually responsible for one more string barred here at the 5th fret, it's the same thing. Minor, major, but if your elbow is poked out like a chicken wing this way, it's not going to work. Now the other shape we were talking about there was the D shape here at the 5th fret on the 5th string, so 5 on the 5th string for D. A, D, and F sharp, all at the 7th fret, are going to be handled by your ring finger here. Now, what I find for this particular chord, which I struggled with again, and I'm sure I'm not alone on that, It's actually the opposite. If your elbow is inward, like you would want for this chord, you're actually going to have a bit of a tricky time here. If your elbow is, in fact, outward just a little, it puts a slight angle on this finger. And again, the phenomenon here is that it's going to be more of the side of the finger that will end up pressing those three strings. So for this particular shape, and no, I would say the D minor shape, the elbow should be in. But for the major shape, the elbow should be popped out a little bit this way. Instantly, it fixes the problem. So there are other different types of bar chords, obviously. These are just the two main ones. The idea here is if one shape requires your elbow in and the other one your elbow out, then the principle here is experiment with the elbow. As long as you're doing the correct thing in terms of fretting with your left hand and you're still not getting a successful sounding bar chord, then I would say start experimenting with elbow placement and watch how your fingers conform. Watch how your fingers change in relation to the elbow. Again, this movement here, I'm not trying to make my fingers do that. They are doing that as a default response to what my elbow is doing. So that went from taking me from weeks trying to master this chord to all of a sudden realizing I did something different when I woke up the next day. And I realized, I've got it now. What happened? What changed? And I noticed that I had string marks on the top of my finger, not on the actual flat part. And I realized that's where the pressure difference was. And after that point, I never really had a problem with bar chords again. So I would check that out and definitely let me know how it goes in the comments. And I hope this works for you, and I will see you next time.